Adam Whitty. Welcome back to Build Your Authority.
Joe Bardavia.
Thank you, Adam. And since we are doing a business podcast, we are legally obligated to do an episode about artificial intelligence. And this is the one. So we don't have the feds bust down our door. We don't have any kind of podcast union come after us. This is going to be our AI episode, right, Adam?
Well, it was part of the contract. In order to have a Google search show our podcast in their search history, there was a contract that said you have to do an episode on AI.
Yeah, and Adam, we teased the episode last week when we wrapped up our conversation with Kristen Hackler, and I was taken aback by your passion of AI. I mean, I rarely ever see your blood boil, but your blood was boiling when I just brought up the idea of the intersection of AI and authority. Now that you've had some time to rest and soak it in, yeah, I know there's a little PTSD there, but why? What concerns you about this intersection?
The blood was boiling for the nefarious use of AI. And, specifically in the construct of thought leadership and the construct of writing and publishing a book, there are a lot of people that are pushing the easy button, and that's code word for the lazy button, which is they just have AI write their content for them. And what they'll do is they'll write a prompt. They'll use open sourced information. So it's plagiarism because it's not even their data set that the LLM is pulling from. That's the large language model is pulling from to then create the new text. It's somebody else's information. So that's what has me hot is the nefarious use of AI. And that is people that don't want to put in the work to create their own content that is authentically theirs. Instead, they just want to, use a system, put in a few prompts, and voila, they have content that they can claim as their own. That could be a blog post, it could be an article or a white paper, but in many cases, Joe, you have people that are publishing books solely using AI as the tool to generate the content and claiming it as their own. And to me, it's unethical, it's immoral, and it completely defeats the spirit of what creative arts is all about. I mean, at the end of the day, authors are creative artists. And, you have people using and abusing technology essentially to cheat and take a shortcut that they shouldn't take.
So what upsets you more, people using AI to create content or Clemson losing a football game? Is it equal footing there, or?
Joe, you really know how to get my blood boiling.
Anyway, so you don't have to answer that question, Adam. But today's episode, we're not, like you said, LLMs. We're not building LLMs today. We're not talking about the inner workings of AI. We're talking about how it works in building your authority. And we're bringing in Kerrie Ann Nauseda. She's the Vice President of Publishing and Strategy Editorial at Advantage. Kerrie Ann, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Especially, this is like exciting business here.
This is exciting. And Adam's very upset, as you can tell, or he's got the blood boiling. It's not my fault, Kerrie Ann. No matter what he says, it's not my fault. But you've got a couple decades experience empowering entrepreneurs and business leaders. But then all of a sudden, here comes November 2023, and ChatGPT is unleashed on the globe. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how we build authority in this AI world. And I know this comes up a lot in conversations you work with entrepreneurs, but before we get into the nitty gritty, you heard Adam's little rant there at the top there. I'm safe to assume you agree with everything he said, but give us a little more on your side of when it comes to building authority.
Well, sure. I mean, building authority in and of itself is the foundation of that is trust. And people are looking to trust the expert. They're looking to trust the human. And if all you're going to do is go into AI and take a bunch of information straight from there and then pass it off as your own, that is not authentic. That is not authoritative expertise in any field whatsoever. So I'm in full agreement on the use of AI when it's done from a nefarious standpoint, when it's not transparent that you're using AI, and then when you're not, if you're not using any of your knowledge, your expertise, your intuition as you're guiding the prompts, then it truly is nothing representative of who you are.
Joe, I want to clarify again. I am a supporter of AI when used in the right way. And, I have a little philosophy here, and Kerrie Ann has heard me share this. Of course, we all work together, and that is that we don't use AI to make books. We use AI to make books better. And that's a really important distinguishing difference, right? Because AI is a tool that, if properly used, can serve mankind in really positive ways, including an author that is creating content to share with others, to educate them, to inform them, maybe to entertain them. And AI can make your content a lot better. And I think Kerrie Ann can share some examples of that and how she and her team use AI as a tool to help our authors improve their content. Uh, but if your sole thought is, I'm going to use AI to create my content from scratch, I think that's where people go astray and where things go wrong really fast.
Yeah, and the T word, Carrie Ann, Adam used it, and this is a big word that people are using when it comes to AI, the tool. So let's get into how these AI tools can help business leaders establish authority. So we've talked about the fact that we've cleared the decks here. We know we're not going to create content with AI. We're going to create it as a writing partner, so to speak. So how does that all work?
Sure, sure. So, I always break it down with my teams as there's operational use of the tool and then there's creative use of the tool. Operationally, go for it. That's where you as an author, you as a thought leader, you're using it to do research. You're using it to maybe personalize things. You're using it for distribution, like amplifying any content that you already have. But you have to combine that with the human expertise, the creativity, the transparency I was just saying. So then that tool does, in fact, like the word you used, Joe, was partner. It can then become your partner for scaling and growing your influence, producing some high value insights, strengthening the connections that you have within an industry or niche. And those who can do that well, they have an opportunity to really stand out as forward thinking, credible experts in their fields. They're going to do that a couple of ways. And first and foremost, AI, whatever tool you're using for the most part, really allows you to consume information quickly. So you can get summaries of white papers, you can get summaries of reports, you can get a lot of information fed to you in a form that you can consume quickly. You're growing your knowledge base. You get real time translations of global content. So now your access is even wider to content and information to help you then build out your knowledge base and your skills. So if we're assuming that authority stems, for the most part from expertise, the AI tool is then helping you skill build and expand your knowledge. So that to me is critical when you're looking at that first use of it. It's also going to help you be able to analyze the data that you're getting from it. So if you have an idea and you want to find support for it, there's certain AI tools that I would be using to find that particular information. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to do a deeper dive into my target audience or my ideal reader. So I'm combining more and more information, but again, it all has to first formulate in my head with my own idea, my own concept, my own experience somewhere. So then I'm now building out a more informed strategy. Or if you want to translate that into publishing speak, your key messages, your core idea. It is just strengthening and building upon the foundation that you're bringing to the tool itself.
Joe, you talked at the very beginning about, the risks of AI, and, Kerrie Ann, I think, nailed it on the head, and it needs to be repeated that, true authority is based on authenticity, and it's based on trust, right? To build and maintain long-term authority, you have to be seen and perceived as authentic, and you have to be seen and perceived as trustworthy by your audience, right? Your audience are the people that are paying attention to you. And when using AI to create content that isn't yours, uh, it's deceitful, number one. But number two, it's inauthentic. And here's the thing is that most people are wise enough where they can read something and they can say, oh, that was AI. I mean, yes, is it very good? Incredibly good. But most people still can read something, especially in longer form, and say, oh, AI did that, right? That wasn't a human. And what we're seeing even now in the early days, the gold rush days of AI, is that there's a lot of people who are actually turning away from it because they are turning towards authentic human connection and away from kind of machine robot based manufactured interaction that isn't based on true authenticity and trust. And so the balance here is going to be using AI in the right way and in the right volume. And so, Kerrie Ann, I would love for you to talk about, what is the right volume? What are the risks of relying on AI too much? And if you're coaching a leader to use this tool to help them, what's the right way and kind of what's the right amount to use it?
Sure, sure, sure. So, if we're trying to discern, am I relying too heavily on AI, and how is that going to impact me building trust and influence and letting my authentic self come through? One of the first things I'm going to look for is voice. So, if your influence is built on trust, and then if your audience even lightly suspects that your voice of authority is AI generated, your credibility is already going to take a hit right from the go. So whether you're in a speaking engagement, whether you are writing a short form article, whether you're writing your book, you have to have your authentic voice come through. So, yeah, AI can generate polished content, but like you said, Adam, it's going to do it in a very generic and personal way that's not going to have your singular stamp of authenticity in it. So, you're going to sound like everyone else. And that also leads you to then blindly trusting your AI tool of choice. And we had talked about this right at the start of the podcast, that you might then even be plagiarizing and not realizing it. So if you're just taking that information and trying to pass it off because you're using it too heavily, you're allowing it to inform you too much, you do run that risk. There's lots out there right now about, AI's nasty habit of providing misinformation as well. So, if you are not rigorously fact checking, you could be completely inaccurate in what you're writing. So it goes to show that not only are you not an expert in your field, but now you potentially are broadcasting or writing material that's not even factually correct. So now let's say your target audience, your ideal reader, the folks that you are looking to establish authority with, they know that you have relied solely on AI to generate content. They're thinking, okay, obviously I can't trust this person whatsoever. And so that's your fine line, that authenticity that you were talking about is just so critical.
Mm. And, Kerrie Ann, fans of this show have a drinking game that every time you hear Adam say the riches are in the niches, you do a shot. It's important building your authority, the riches and niches, finding your niche in your industry. How does finding the niche in AI work? Because these LLMs are constantly being fed with information, but can you really take full advantage of niches using AI, or is it more nuanced than that? Tell us about the complexities of
Sure.
dealing in a very niche industry or a very niche topic using AI.
Sure, sure. Yeah, well, AI just simply doesn't do nuance, well or otherwise. So unless you're very, very carefully and methodically prompting, and even then, you can still miss the mark because AI systems, they struggle with abstract ideas. They struggle with humor, irony, all of the things that make us human, and all of those items that are crucial in understanding a really nuanced industry knowledge base. it's simply not going to be able to keep up, because while AI can process large amounts of data, when it comes to grasping those deeper contexts behind industry specific terminology or trends or experiences, it just can't fully understand the why behind them. And so, if we're looking for leadership, if we're looking at industry leaders to develop the knowledge, to take their knowledge and to develop that intuition or instinct from the years of experience, their relationships, their leading, their real world challenges, they're not going to be able to get that from AI, because AI simply can't replicate that level of human judgment. I know instinct or intuition they're not your favorite words, Adam, but that is what, part of what makes us human and a part of what makes AI so obviously AI when we're generating content. It just doesn't have that type of strategic foresight.
Yeah, and for the outsiders that don't know the inside joke, one of my sayings here at Advantage is facts and data, and the truth will set you free, right? So we use facts and data, we rely on facts and data rather than instinct, intuition, and opinion. And in terms of making business decisions, that can be a really good guidepost. But when it comes to creating content, which again, it's creative arts. We had Don Yeager on at the beginning of this season. We had Kristen Hackler on in our last episode, and we were talking about the art of storytelling, right? Creating a great book, at the end of the day, no matter its topic, there is an art of storytelling that must be present and part of it. And that's where AI really struggles, right? AI can give you the facts and data, but spinning a good yarn as a storyteller, that's not something that AI really excels at.
No, even when you use specific tools where you can feed it items that you've written or podcasts that you've been on or videos that you created, and you say, okay, now go create a bit of content and use my voice. Now that I fed you my voice, it still isn't an exact match. It tends to go over the top, or it doesn't achieve what you're trying to achieve. There is not enough of it. So there is no way to capture the human voice without the human voice doing the actual work.
Well, like Adam said, this is not the anti-AI podcast, and
Oh,
let's look at the bright side. How can we use AI effectively when it comes to building authority? Give us some guideposts for folks who are like, okay, I get it. AI, I'm not going to build my authority. I'm not going to be an authority in my field strictly using AI. I need to use my expertise. But how does AI help? Let's talk about effective uses of it.
oh, sure. Well, we talked a little bit about the fact that it can process large volumes of data faster than we could even imagine. It's going to help support any decision making that you're trying to do, because it's going to feed you insights. It's going to feed you trends that you might not have access to. One thing that I cannot abide is repetitive type of tasks. AI is great for that. So it can do the research, it can do the minutia, and that frees you up to then focus on that creativity, to focus on the strategy of your content development, finding that human, that golden thread that makes your story really, really special. You know, it is wonderful with also showing you, what does my reader care about? um, it's going to give you deeper insight. So you might have a client, you might have a customer base, and you might know them really, really well. You've got lots of years of experience. What AI is going to be able to do then is to give you facts and data that help support that knowledge and that experience you already have.
Kerrie Ann, let's talk about the tool, right?
Mhm.
We talked about AI is a tool to help you make your writing better. It's not a tool to do your writing for you. I'll use the analogy as a pilot. On most flights, 95% of the time, I engage the autopilot to fly the airplane. But during that time, I am monitoring every instrument, every indicator, and I can quickly override the autopilot if I see something amiss, right? So the effective use of AI is very similar, where you, as the author, you are the operator of the tool. So let's talk about how we humans effectively, prompt, monitor, and manage the tool so it effectively can help us with our content creation, content improvement, kind of content refinement.
I'm going to bring it back to the authority building first. And so, yes, you're right in saying that, AI alone is not effective by itself. Again, we're going to be using it as a partner. We're going to be using it as a prompt partner. So if I take this to applying it to what you talked about with Kristen last week, and that was generating your book idea and finding the right core messages. So what the AI can help do is if you put in a prompt and you start with your core messages, what you're basically doing is having a conversation with AI. So where folks can go wrong is on just taking the information that's been fed, putting it off to the side, asking the next question. And that's where you can get lost, where your message can get diluted, where you can be fed biased information or the wrong information. Um, so as you're reading this, this is where you're actually going to have that conversation. So you're going to, let's say AI comes back with a response of you're trying to bake a cake and you want to write a book about a cake. AI comes back and it gives you the recipe. Well, your next question is, okay, but what happens if it's really humid outside? Or what happens if I'm in altitude? Well, AI isn't going to automatically adjust that recipe for you, but you having that knowledge, knowing that, okay, if I'm in Denver, I'm going to need to make adjustments, that knowledge you bring into your next prompt. So you say, what do I need to do to adjust my recipe? And then it tells you how to adjust your recipe. So if you apply that to thinking about your book, here's my idea for my book. I want it to go in this direction. Poke holes in this idea for me. Then AI comes back with all the things that you didn't think about. So now you're still building from that. And then as you're reading it again, you're bringing the types of questions like, what happens if I'm trying to bake in altitude, but applying that same methodology into the prompts about how you're trying to get to your book idea. I know I just took us in a really crazy route and I have a cake at the end of it. Did that make sense what I was saying?
It sure did. I love all these. We got flying analogies, baking analogies. We got it all in this podcast, Adam. And the underlying part of this whole conversation is ethics. And we all know with a book, if you're quoting someone, there's going to be the footnotes, there's going to be the index in the back. I don't know if anyone's really decided on how we're going to explain that we used AI in something. And like you said, it could be as simple as pulling a fact, getting a table or something. But how are you thinking about that, Kerrie Ann, in the future in terms of like how we're going to ethically use it, but also ethically show people that we use it?
It's a great question because first and foremost, Adam, I think you said this word first. I'm transparency. I think that audiences deserve and they expect to know the true source of content. So if you are using AI operationally, it's fair to say I've used this tool to help me research this particular topic, because hidden AI use can be super damaging. Like we talked about, it can damage your credibility once it's been discovered that you used it and you didn't tell anybody. Um, it's really hard to rebuild trust once broken through non-disclosure. So, if we're looking to build reader relationships, those are going to be based on authentic connection, and you just don't want to jeopardize that with any sort of unethical use of AI or non-transparent use of AI. So, we also, as business leaders, have an obligation to be truthful about our content creation too. While using it might be might be a little bit scary at first, or by admitting its use can be a little scary. It could set, honestly, this is something that I hear from our authors a lot. Well, can I tell them I used AI? Should I tell them I used AI? Maybe they're going to think it's not my idea. And that's where it comes back to that idea between operational use or creative use. So if you're transparent about your operational use, well, now it's essentially you're using it like you would have used the internet. You're using it, again, as a tool, but you're not using it to create your thought leadership, to create your ideas, create your book. And that's where the ethical part comes into play. I mean, first and foremost, it is that transparency. It's thinking about your legal consequences. It's clearly defining, and this is part of both of those things, how you're using it, where you're using it, um, and then really just constantly coming back to your genuine expertise. Use your AI to enhance rather than replace authentic insights, and then be transparent about it.
It's a great point, and it bears repeating. So, in the case of creating a book, right now, Kerrie Ann and her team, they're using AI as a tool to help the book architect plan, organize the content, and structure the content for the writing. Okay. So imagine that building a book is like building a house. The architect is using AI to help them outline the book. Kind of like an architect using CAD to design the blueprints for a house. Okay.
Mhm.
But then once that book plan is created, using AI to assist the architect in creating the book plan, then a writer is following the plan and writing the book. So AI is not writing the book. A human's writing the book. Okay? That's the big difference is you're using AI as a tool to organize your thoughts, but you're not using AI to write and create your thoughts.
That's right. And we're not using AI to come up with the chapter ideas. We're not using the AI to come up with the actual core messages and the key ideas and the themes. Um, we are coming, as the humans, that's what we are creatively developing. The AI is helping structure those.
That's a really important distinguishing difference, right? A tool to organize, a tool to structure versus a tool to write. The other thing that is important that I will mention is even as we use AI as a tool to structure and organize, it's all done in a closed data set,
Yes.
meaning that the tool is only using the author's information to organize and structure. It's not going out into the world through the LLM, large language model. It's not going out and pulling publicly available information to then synthesize and
That's right.
translate back to the author. And that's a very important distinguishing difference because when you talk about intellectual property and intellectual property rights, the challenge with AI, as it's being nefariously used by many, is that you are using someone else's intellectual property, having AI change it, and then claiming it as your own.
That's right.
Whereas when you put your data into an AI tool, close it so it can't take information from any other place, AI is just a tool working with your information. So it's all of your intellectual
That's right.
property and no one else's. And
That's
that's a
right.
very, very important distinguishing difference.
That's right.
The one thing with AI, though, I've noticed is it's not a lot of black and white. There's a lot of gray because if we start to really look at the nuance here, spell check is a version of AI. Grammarly is a version of AI. So where do you draw the line? I mean, again, this gets into how authentic you are, how transparent you are. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are using these tools that aren't actually like LLMs, but they're versions of AI. So what do you think about that, Adam?
Well, I mean, let's look at spell check for a minute, right? I chose the word that I wanted to use creatively. I just happened to misspell it. And spell check corrected me and said, "No, dummy. The proper spelling of the word is this." If I am instead having an AI tool choose the word for me instead of me choosing the word myself, then the tool is now taking creative license to create that sentence rather than me, yet I am claiming authorship for a sentence that I did not write. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and a lot of writers are, and the thing you're discussing, Adam, is Grammarly. Like that's essentially what Grammarly does as a Chrome extension, or people sign up for it. So there is again this whole this whole gray area about
Yeah.
AI. is
Well, it's
complicated.
a slippery slope,
Yeah.
right? It's a slippery slope. Very limited, innocent use can quickly snowball into extensive and nefarious use.
Mhm. And that's interesting that you said that because what have found too, and what I've seen is that the folks who become so almost dependent on AI, and I'm talking like the heavier duty use. Yes, maybe some Grammarly, but now we've delved into Claude, and now we're using Claude projects, or now we're using Chat in Chats projects or Notebook. Um, they stop thinking for themselves, and that if you're looking to build your authority, grow your authority, keep and maintain and nurture that authority, that is your surefire way of completely ruining any sort of credibility that you have, because now you're letting something else think from you. You're becoming reliant on it. You're becoming dependent on it. None of your content, none of your ideas from here on out are going to be original, and much less have your authentic voice in there. So, it is a constant state of checking, adjusting, and you have to human check everything that comes out of an AI.
And if you think about what is authority, what is thought leadership, it's someone that has deep subject matter expertise that is then sharing their expertise with others, probably to help those others make more informed, better decisions, right? And so if you are instead using AI to create your content, essentially create your expertise, then over time, you as the supposed subject matter expert have no expertise. You're incapable of creating your own content because you don't know what to say. You're instead relying on an AI tool to do it for you. So it's one of those things where yes, it's an appealing shortcut and it's an appealing easy button, but when you start using it and then relying on it, it kills you slowly but surely, because as Kerrie Ann said, you no longer have to think for yourself. And true authority and thought leadership is based on true, genuine, authentic expertise that comes from knowledge, from wisdom, from experience. And, that has to be gained and earned the hard way. You've got to do the work. You've got to have the experiences. You have to have the education yourself in order to then teach people from it.
Mm.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right. Well, let's wrap things up talking about the future, because a lot's happened in the last year plus of just AI being introduced to the world. So, Adam, I want to pose this question to you first, though. Do you see a future where anything published has to have that disclaimer that AI was used in the writing of this book, or any kind of creative endeavor going forward? Do you think that disclaimer will be necessary, or do you think that's not, as long as, again, it's not straight up plagiarism, there's no need to divulge that AI was used? Or at this point in our lives, Adam, are we to assume that some level of AI was used to create a book or piece of content?
Well, today, I mean, you have some platforms that are very overt in telling you that they will deprioritize or eliminate your content if AI is used to create it. I'll give you two examples. Today, the day that we are recording this, which is in late 2024, uh, Audible will not allow you to publish an audiobook on their platform if AI was used to create the audio file, right? So it's got to be a real human speaking the words of the book in order for Audible to publish it. And if you try to cheat the system, they have really good mechanisms to ferret that out, and they'll kick you off. As of today, Google has said that if AI is used to create the content on uh, your website will be delisted and deprioritized. Now, will every standard have someone that wants to cheat it and try to get around it? Of course, that's human nature. Will some people have success doing it? I'm sure they will. But I do think that consumers will demand transparent and honest and ethical disclosure. And again, if we see AI as a tool, you should not have any qualms about saying, I used AI as a tool to help me create this content, right? The only reason that you don't want to tell someone that you used AI is because you want to get full credit and you want people to think that you created it yourself when indeed you didn't. So, I'm not one to predict the future. What I found is that when I do predict the future, I'm oftentimes wrong. So, Joe, I won't tell you what the future will hold, but I will say I do feel that there is sentiment amongst most consumers that they want disclosure. They will accept disclosure and accept the content with the disclosure. It's when you try to lie or misinform or be inauthentic and untransparent that the marketplace will ultimately rebel against you.
All right, well, Kerrie Ann, I'm going to ask you to make predictions here. So, talk about the fact that how AI will change building authority in the future. I mean, you've seen it over the last year, but like what going forward? We've discussed a lot of it today, but is there anything that jumps out in terms of like the future of AI and building authority?
I'm going to build on what Adam just said, and then I'm going to apply it to actually publishing. So if we are looking ahead, there are things that are already happening within the industry and how business leaders and how authors are handling AI disclosure, because you are going to have to be fully transparent about it. So, in book acknowledgement sections, authors are writing things like, in developing this book, I utilized AI tools such as ChatGPT to assist with research compilation and initial drafts. However, all insights, analyses, and conclusions are my own through 20 years of industry experience. You'll see it in the author's note or the preface. There are methodology sections in some nonfiction's books where an author might choose to say, my writing process combines decades of experience along with modern AI tools. So, it's just being very, very honest about it and open about it, like Adam just said. And like anything else, it will become a norm. Right now, it feels very, very new, and for some folks, very scary to actually admit the use of it, so long as you're using it in an operational standpoint. But, I would think very soon you're going to see more and more acknowledgments of its use, which will then normalize it.
Hmm. How about regulations? Do you see any of that playing a part? It probably won't play a part in terms of the publishing part, but in terms of creating something that could inevitably harm someone or whatever. What do you think about regulations in AI?
Adam, did you want to take that?
Oh, Kerrie Ann, I'm going to let you take that one.
Okay, so it's my crystal ball, right?
Yes, please.
I mean, I definitely see some sort of regulations having to come downstream. So much of everything that's happening with AI is exactly what we went through when the internet came out and everyone was in a big kerfuffle over what that was going to bring, and our jobs were going to go out of the way. The libraries were all going to close, and yes, okay, they eventually are closing, but now this is decades and decades later. So it's the same principle. There will be regulations. It will take some time for them to get in place, but the more industries that put their foot down, the like publishing, Penguin Random House, hard no. Audible, like you just said, Adam, hard no. The more that we see of that, the faster we will get some regulations in place, and likely those regulations will then shift and adjust as we learn more.
Adam, I'll give you the final word on this.
Joe, I think Kerrie Ann may be right.
Hey, this is recorded.
Do you notice how I really sat right on the middle of the fence there? She may be right.
Right. You're not saying she is right. She may be right. Awesome.
Maybe.
Well, her name is Kerrie Ann Nauseda. If you have any issues with anything Kerrie Ann said, Kerrie Ann, what's the best place to contact you, look you up, find out more information about what you're doing?
You are welcome to shoot me an email. I am going to be that bold. It is knauseda@forbesbooks.com.
Kerrie Ann, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
And that's going to wrap up our official AI episode. We could tell the feds that we covered artificial intelligence on the podcast, and I could see why you were passionate about it. I mean, it does make a lot of sense, especially when it comes to authority building. You're building your own authority, not some sort of technology's authority. So it is important that we stress the difference. Again, not being anti-AI, but when it comes to what we're talking about in the name of the show and what we do as a company, building your authority does not start or end with AI. It's part of the journey, but is not what you're doing, right, Adam?
Yeah, that's right. It's authenticity, it's trust, and it's real, right? If you are real, if you're authentic and you are trustworthy, you will have authority. But when you use tools to cheat and shortcut, it sabotages what authority is all about.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. I'll see you next time on Build Your Authority.
Looking forward to it.